When it comes to Donald Trump, things just seem to go from bad to worse. After the announcement of a 25% tariff as well as an unspecified penalty for trading with Russia and purchasing its oil, came an extremely scathing and insulting comment from Donald Trump, where he referenced India's economy to be a dead economy alongside that of Russia. What is even going on and how should India react? Should India continue to remain part of these trade negotiations or walk away from them? And how does this fundamentally alter, if it does, the relationship between India and the United States at this present moment? What was the trigger for Donald Trump? Was it, as some have suggested, Prime Minister Modi's detailed exposition of what happened when US Vice President JD Vance called him in the middle of Operation Sindoor? Or is it something else? Because remember, on the day of Trump's tirade against India, he's also sealed a deal with Pakistan. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. On the program today, we look at the politics and the geopolitics of Trump's tariff tirade against India, which now seems to have gone well beyond the American interest in supposedly rebalancing its trade with countries around the world. With Trump, something is beginning to feel personal now. He's been obsessively fixated on taking credit for what he calls his brokering of peace between India and Pakistan, something that India has rubbished. Most recently, the Prime Minister, speaking from the floor of the House, countered this by recounting a phone call with JD Vance that he says he was able to engage with after 3 or 4 times of the US Vice President trying to reach him. Was this exposition of this phone call the immediate trigger because hours later came Trump's announcement, or was it going to come anyway? What about the penalty, so-called penalty for purchasing oil from Russia? And now 6 to 7 Indian companies that are facing US sanctions because they do business with Iran. The honeymoon between Modi and Trump is over, but it's not quite clear how India will and should respond. Minister Piyush Goyal, moments ago, made a rather restrained statement in Parliament. We'll be looking at that in moments from now. What has got Trump's goat, and how might it realign India's strategic responses? Let me introduce our very distinguished panel of experts today as we look at the fallout of an unhinged Donald Trump. Tavleen Singh, author and columnist, is with us. Good to see you, Tavleen. Veteran diplomat Ambassador Yash Sinha is on the program. Welcome back, sir. Veteran diplomat Ambassador Dilip Sinha is also with us. Good to see you, sir. And Mohandas Pai, industrialist and educationist, venture capitalist, is with us as well. Welcome, everybody. Let's get first comments. I'll start with you, Mohan. You're in the world of business and commerce. Are you worried? Are you concerned? It might not immediately impact the spaces that you're in, but it certainly could have a direct hit on several other sectors.
Well, Barkha, honestly, I'm not very worried because if you look at what President Trump has done, he has a deal with the EU where 15% is paid by the EU for the privilege of selling to America, and they opened up the entire market for American goods without any tariffs to America. And if you look at Japan, similarly, 15% open up the market, come and invest. So Trump is very clear in my mind from what I see that he wants all countries to pay a minimum of 15% in case they want to sell to America, and he wants access to their market totally free of tariff. That is his intention. He is not going to let you go away by saying we'll charge equally. He wants you to invest in America, and he is trying to put a gun to everybody to force them into negotiating something like that. He's got $100 billion of money from the tariffs in the quarter to June. For the full year, he'll get about maybe $450 billion. His intent on that, and it will fund the tax giveaways that he has done. And he wants to, he's seen a reduction in the imports in the US. In June, for instance, he had a trade surplus of $25 billion as against the anticipated deficit of $44 billion. He's transforming the US fiscal situation and the trade by all this. Now, all this talk about Operation Sindoor and all that, I think is an aside. He's not bothered about all this thing from what I see. And I think for a bit of time, India will negotiate. We'll have some red lines. He will have some red lines, and we'll come down to 15%. There's no hope of coming down from 15%. And as far as the impact for this, a report says the incremental impact will be $10 billion on us compared to the 10% that we already pay, because the weighted average will go 21% out of 10 billion, because the tariffs on electronics and pharmaceutical is deferred, it'll be $6 billion. That's the worst hit. $6 billion for India is not too big, but it could impact some of these companies which will be hit because of the extra tariff, because they have to suffer a disadvantage about 10 to 15% compared to countries where it is 15%. We have to see what happens to China. So I think right now people have digested this, people understand this, they're not unduly worried till we actually know what is happening, and people are making up these plans to counter this in a sort of a way. So I don't think it's linked to any politics or any of the war issues or anything like that. It's pure business for Trump.
Okay, that's interesting. And let me get both the diplomats in before I come to Tavleen. Ambassador Dilip Sinha, I'll start with you. Mohandas Pai believes that it is pure coincidence that a few hours separated Trump's announcement on the tariffs and the penalty. Let's not forget the penalty, as if we're a sort of, a recalcitrant school child being reprimanded by the class monitor of the world. But that aside, Mr. Pai believes that it is pure coincidence. This was coming anyway. He had made no bones about the fact that he was upset with what he calls protectionism in India and so on. But I felt that the fact that he chose to impose this penalty on account of India's relations with Russia makes this somewhat more than a business interest for him. There's something deeply personal about A, his obsessive fixation on trying to steal credit for so-called brokering a peace deal, and B, this penalizing India for relations with Russia. How do you see it?
Well, I hope Mr. Mohandas is correct, because our relationship with the US is a very important relationship. We want this relationship to strengthen further, to go ahead. The US is our largest economic and trading partner by a long stretch. So I hope what he's saying is absolutely correct. What you're saying is also important, because the fact is that while the US has a trade deficit with India and US has a lot of complaints against India's trade protectionism, the fact is that the three largest trading partners and the countries with which the US has huge trade deficits, several times more than the deficit with India, are Mexico, Canada, and China. And these three he's not yet touched. And with India, the reasons being given constantly keep changing. At times he talks about trade deficit, then they talk about Russia oil, then they talk about this mediation thing. BRICS also has been mentioned. So it does seem that there is something a little more than the trade deficit. Trump is an extremely touchy person. He likes flattery, and he doesn't like any kind of criticism, doesn't take criticism well. And that is behind all the chaos that he's caused within the country, the polarization within America itself. And people thought that the WTO rules were a crazy maze. What he's negotiating with with various countries will drive any analyst mad. So the deals that the countries have got so far with the US are actually, you can actually weigh them and see, have they actually benefited from those? We can go into those a little in greater detail, but these are like deals in which the price they have paid for duty reduction is so high that it may not actually be worth India to go in for those deals. We have got 25%. Indonesia and which other country has got 19%? Indonesia and the Philippines have got 19%. That's about 6% difference for us. But the price that countries like Japan and ally, the EU, have paid in terms of the amount that they have to invest in the US makes us feel that we are perhaps better off not having got a deal. Certainly, we should be very circumspect in what we say because of the importance of this relationship. But I think it goes a little beyond. Fortunately, our stock market today has not really slumped. It's behaved quite well. So I hope Mr. Mohandas is correct, and that our business people feel reasonably reassured that it's not going to hit them on the head so badly.
Ambassador Dilip Sinha, as I get in Ambassador Yash Sinha, you said it seems to be a little more than about just pure business, and somewhere his ego, you didn't say this, I'm reading between the lines, somewhere his ego might have been rankled because the contrast is with Pakistan, right? He's cozying up Ambassador Yash Sinha with Pakistan. He has, done a trade deal with them as his tirade right at the exact point that he's lashing out against India. He's making stupid jokes about how one day Pakistan may sell oil to India. So it's difficult to I understand what Mohan is saying, that, Trump is a businessman in the end, but there seems to be a little bit of business plus ego here. Something that one can't put one's finger on. I don't know if you see it the same way. Yash Sinha.
Thank you, Barkha. No, I'd be very happy if Pakistan actually found oil. I doubt very much. I don't think any surveys have been done. But be that as it may, I think we're dealing with a very transactional president. And when you talk about ego, if you recall in his first term, the Howdy Modi event in Houston, where he joined in, and of course the Namaste Trump in Ahmedabad. So, I mean, these were events where we really flattered him in the sort of welcome he got, very rarely that any foreign leader got in India. So I think the question of, linking Operation Sindoor and the credit for Operation Sindoor and this, there is obviously something in his mind which we don't know. But the fact is that irrespective of whether there would have been a mediation or an attempt at mediation or a facilitation in the course of Operation Sindoor, the fact is that he would have still imposed tariffs on us because he sees us and he firmly believes that we are a tariff king, as he likes to describe us once in a while. But I think we have been very measured in our reaction, and I think the real negotiations will be if and when the US team comes here. It's supposed to come on the 25th of August. I think it's very correct that we are not overreacting, and I must commend just the media and our business community for showing the maturity and restraint, because we are dealing with somebody. You've seen what has happened with the other countries. I think Dilip mentioned about the agreements with Japan and the EU. I mean, that's something that India couldn't do. And of course, both Japan and EU are at very different levels of development than we are. And we can't afford to be as generous as they are. But be that as it may, in the EU, you've got France already criticizing this agreement as a sellout. So I think we really need to hold our ground and negotiate as best as we can. It's not going to be easy. I understand our negotiators are up against a huge sort of boulder that they have to move around. But I think in the long run, I think will be a realization that India, one, cannot be trifled with. Two, that India is far too important, because if you really look at India in the context of the Indo-Pacific and at the same time try and punish India, then I think it's also hypocritical, because after all, the US is buying uranium, rare earth from Russia. Europe is buying gas from Russia. So, I mean, you've got to understand the context in which so-called penalties are being imposed.
Yeah, but I have to say, I do admire those who are showing restraint right now. Trained diplomats like yourselves, sanguine industrialists like Mohan. Personally, I find it enormously irritating. And I guess that's what he wants. He is that quintessential bully who wants to provoke you, needle you into a reaction. And Tavleen, I guess the question is that when the American president calls your country's economy a dead economy alongside that of Russia, he basically said today, I don't care much for what happens to India and Russia. They can do what they want to. They're both dead economies. When he makes it a point on the same day to cozy up with Pakistan, make a corny joke about Pakistan selling oil to India one day, it is very hard for at least lay people who are not trained diplomats to not feel annoyed. I don't know how you're feeling.
I'm actually really not very bothered by it, to tell you the truth, because it could change again tomorrow. So but what I think is very wrong is to link it to Operation Sindoor. Let me tell you, I hate to say this, India doesn't matter that much. I mean, if we have another little war, it's on a sideline. There are much bigger things going on in the world, and Trump is more interested in the bigger games. With India, what he is trying to do is, bully us into a deal. But what we need to ask is, what have our guys been doing? For 6 months, they've been sitting there negotiating. A deal is about to come through. They knew all along that they would need to do a deal. But did they fall asleep? Or, what happened? Something seems to, let's not just blame him. We know what you're dealing with. But, that's what our guys at the top should have known, that what we were dealing with, and behaved a bit, more, I don't know, not conciliatory, but, give him a little bit of this or that. But I don't know whether you've heard it, but there's a rumor in New York that Modi I mean, he went off Modi because when Modi came during the campaign, he went and saw Kamala Harris and Biden. And then, he didn't end up meeting Trump. So, I mean, he is a man of a very fragile ego. And that's one of the theories going around. But, it doesn't really matter. What really intrigues me is why we are not exposing the fact that the sudden love affair with Pakistan is because his sons are doing business with Nawaz Sharif or Shabazz Sharif, his sons. There's a full deal going. And, maybe the Tariffs have said, we'll let you into, you can go into Sui gas exploitation and go into Balochistan and look for oil and Sindh and look for oil. We don't know. But I actually fault our own guys for not having, prepared for this, because it's tomorrow the thing comes in, doesn't it?
1st August, yes. But there are a lot of couple of different points there, Tavleen. You say don't link it to Op Sindoor. You also talk about his fragile ego. If Op Sindoor is not on his mind, he's now, I don't know, I've lost count now, 27 or 29 times wanted to take credit. That's point one. Point two isn't a little bit of the government damned if they do and damned if they don't. One side is attacking them for not standing up. The other side is saying, hey, why haven't you shown more deafness? To me, one of the myths that's just been busted is this whole idea of a trade deal for ceasefire. This claim that we've been dangling trade in exchange for that. If they were dangling a trade deal, where's that trade deal? Trump's lie on this has just been exposed.
Where I'm telling you, just look at the rest of the world and its attitude at the moment. They're not interested in India. So this is India at the moment. I hate to say this, is a sideshow. I mean, when he talks about it being a dead economy, who gets up and says, yes, Rahul Gandhi is busy, celebrating that and saying it is a dead economy. And by the way, the economy is not in good shape. Mohan, tell the truth. Okay. So, I mean, it's not a dead economy, but, China can afford to be tough because China has the economic muscle.
Okay.
We don't. So
we have waited
more conciliatory, I think.
Okay, this is a very interesting point in this conversation because we have waded into what Rahul Gandhi said, which I was keeping for just a few moments down in the conversation. But I'm glad you brought it up because I find it interesting that Tavleen is actually saying that our negotiators should have been more conciliatory, whereas the kind of sentiment on the street, which undoubtedly is not the people who have to negotiate, is saying, why aren't we taking a tougher position? So on that note, let's first come to Piyush Goyal. Before we come to Rahul Gandhi, let's come to the minister's statement on the floor of the House and go step by step, and then I'll come back to Mohan and to the two ambassadors and Tavleen, of course. Take a look.
सरकार हालिया घटनाक्रम से होने वाले प्रभावों का परीक्षण कर रही है। वाणिज्य एवं उद्योग मंत्रालय निर्यातकों और उद्योग सहित सभी हितधारकों से संवाद कर इस विषय पर उनके आकलन की जानकारी ले रहा है। सरकार हमारे किसानों, श्रमिकों, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, उद्यमी, निर्यातकों, सूक्ष्म लघु और मध्यम उद्योगों और उद्योग जगत के सभी हितधारकों के कल्याण की रक्षा और संवर्धन को सर्वोच्च महत्व देती है। हम अपने राष्ट्रीय हितों को सुरक्षित करने और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सभी आवश्यक कदम उठाएंगे।
I'll just quickly paraphrase that into English for members of our audience who are not so comfortable with it. He said we will do what it takes to protect our national interests. In particular, he spoke about farmers, dairy, the sectors that it is reported that India has refused to open up to US imports, and that more than Operation Sindoor, that has been the sticking point in these negotiations. But that makes it very tough to understand the penalty for Russia unless that's only a kind of blackmail. So let's come to whether India should have been more conciliatory or less. Tavleen just said we should have been more conciliatory. Mohandas Pai, what do you say?
Well, I think, Barkha, my view is we are negotiated fairly well. we have had multiple negotiations, and we had drawn some red lines about not allowing our GM crops to come in, not allowing the milk to come in, etc., which I think is right, because we have a lot of poor people engaged in those activities, and we can't afford a rich country like America dumping its surplus food into this country. So I think we have done reasonably well. What we could have done maybe a little bit better was to say, promise to open up all our industries to America to export, because they're incapable of exporting. There's not much industry left there to export. We don't have to be scared, but they were keeping it apart for negotiating to get more from America. And I think, it's just the game that we played. Remember, we are among the first to go negotiate with America, and it has taken time. We have not been bowing down. We have not been bending backwards like some other countries did just to get it passed. So I don't think we should blame our people. We should just take it on the chin as it is. But one thing is very clear. He's not going to come below 15% for anybody. Let's be very clear. Second, China is going to ring China, because China is the big beast out there. And third, like Toli said, we got to be sure of a place in the world. Nobody cares for us in the world. We are a big player in the world. For the US, we are just a curiosity. Now, as about this penalty, the penalty is an issue between him and Russia. Putin is standing up to him and calling him a bully and saying he's of no consequence. Whatever America does, Putin is going to do what he wants. Now, he wants to hit Putin, and he believes that Putin is getting sustenance because he sells oil to us. Of course, he forgets. We buy 35% of oil from Putin, but we export 25% of that back to Europe. Who is going to be hurt? Europe. We can shut up our export industry. We won't be hurt. We'll have oil for our need. I mean, Europe will be hurt, America will be hurt. And if the oil price goes up in America, Trump will be hurt because consumers have to pay more. I mean, I don't think he's factoring that in. He wants peace between Ukraine and Russia. He wants a Nobel Peace Prize. That is the angling for. He's spoken about it. And Putin is not obliging. So he's hitting Putin more. And the radical fringe of the Republican Party says that we'll have 500% tariff, blah, 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 threatening will destroy your economy. I mean, that's all he's trying to do. And that is the penalty part. And, penalty and other part that he's speaking about, which we have to see what happens. I'm sure the Indian government has an alternative view. They put in plan B and all that for the oil, because we have diversified our supplies of oil very well. And we are very large exporters. We got one of the largest surplus refining capacity in the world and the large exporters. And the total export industry, even if it goes away, is not going to be a very, very big impact for it, because our supply of oil has to be assured, and there's enough oil there, and we are in a good shape to look at any price spikes for at least 3 to 4 months. But I think we have to distinguish the trade from this Russian oil penalty, because
that's my point. That's my point. If it's about trade rebalancing, it should end with the tariffs, and you negotiate on the tariffs. You do not wrap a country such as ours on the knuckles and say, sit down, stop buying oil from Russia, otherwise we'll punish you.
Barkha,
that's what it is.
Barkha, please, we are the biggest country in the world with population. He doesn't care. We are a big player for him. India falls on the map. He doesn't care a damn. Trump has no friends globally. Trump has no friends. He only has some interest for America. He doesn't care for the EU, doesn't care for Japan, doesn't care for anybody. He doesn't even care for his own people. I mean, he'll take on everybody. He does what he wants. What he wants to do is to reduce the tariffs. I mean, reduce the trade imbalance. He wants to make sure that the debt, American debt, possibly comes down by getting more revenue. Barkha, there is a problem in America. I'll just state it for a fact. $32 trillion GDP, $37 trillion debt, $1.2 trillion interest, and $7 trillion spending, going up to $1.5 trillion next year, and $2 trillion fiscal deficit, which has got to do $8 trillion in extra debt in another 4 years. So it'll go 37, it'll go to 45 trillion. They're in deep trouble, even though they believe it. So he wants to settle all that by making the world buy more, by creating tax and getting revenues and making sure it's a safe path for America. So that is the intention. All the other things are negotiating tools from what he's doing.
So two very different perspectives. Tavleen thinks that our negotiators should have done a better job. Mohan says that they did as good a job as they could. But Trump is Trump, and he's guided by a completely different set of motivations here. Before Master Dilip and Yash come in, let's play out Trump's latest clip on record. A lot of his news comes from his social media postings. So this dead economies business has come from his posts on Truth Social. But this is what he said on camera most recently on negotiations with India. Take a look.
Mentioned today that India, in addition to its 25% tariff rate, would pay an additional penalty because of its support of Russia. What is that additional penalty? And are other countries facing the same threat?
Well, we're negotiating right now, and it's also BRICS. You know, they have BRICS, which is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States, and India is a member of that, if you can believe it. It's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So it's partially BRICS, and it's partially the trade situation. It's the deficit. We had a tremendous deficit. So, as you know, Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week. August 1st is a very big day for this country because money is going to pour into the United States like we've never seen before. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he's saying money is going to pour in. That's what Mohan in a way was talking about, that that's his only interest. But Ambassador Dilip Sinha, to start with you, not just Russia, BRICS is a problem. It's an attack on the dollar. He's found other things now, right? He's found other things now. And and let's not be surprised if down the road he cuts a deal with China. So there's no consistency, there's no ideology here. This little lecture about, why are you purchasing oil from Russia? Why are you a member of the BRICS? Trump doesn't really believe anything. I mean, he ironically was seen to be kind of Putin's poodle. It's just that attempt to broker a kind of ceasefire between those two countries and end that war didn't take off. So how do you see these comments on Russia, on BRICS, on an attack on the dollar?
Well, all these are part of the chaos that he's creating. But what's important for us is to rescue our relationship with the US from this Trump chaos. Now, here what's important is that we must remember that Trump has shaken the rules of trade to a point, of international trade to a point where none of the earlier rules and principles that we had got used to after the WTO came into existence exist any longer. Now, our major problem today in trade is not with the US, it's with China. Now, if we are trying to protect our economy from the US and not giving concessions to the US, then we should be taking action against China first. Now, here, Trump has given us an opening because earlier we would say that we cannot restrict China's imports from China because of WTO rules. Now, Trump has thrown WTO down the drain. In fact, he has thrown even the first principle of GATT, the MFN, most favored nation treatment. That is also down the drain. So now we can negotiate absolutely simply on a country-to-country basis, item-to-item basis. So if there is somebody in the US wanting to sell, let us say, some kind of milk to India, well, you can put a quantitative restriction and allow that to come in. It won't kill our economy. And then you save that the deficit that we have with China can then be countered. So what's the point in being tough with the US, which is our largest trading partner? And then when it comes to China, we go all soft and limp. And that is our major problem. And with the US, we have to negotiate as a businessman that you are negotiating not for the whole country, not the whole world. Earlier, you would say, I can't give a concession to the US on this particular item because I have to then extend it to the whole world at that same rate. Now, that doesn't happen any longer. You can say, I'll give a lower duty to the US milk and then not extend that to Australia.
So you're actually saying that we need to be tougher with China than with the Americans, and we've got it wrong because China anyway is a bigger adversary. And we saw that in Sindoor with the army saying that it provided not just the weapons but live inputs. Ambassador Sinha, do you agree? The relationship with China is a bit befuddling because in the age of Trump, you can't put your eggs in the American basket. I know Tavleen may disagree because we've spoken about this earlier, but if you were to counter an America that's run by Trump, then you may end up being isolated in a situation where Trump cuts a deal with China. You're left in a kind of friction situation with China. And then who do you turn to if you need to turn to anybody at all?
So you see, if Trump cuts a deal with China and there are no penalty clauses for buying oil, China is the biggest buyer of Russian oil. So obviously you can't have two standards. Well, you can't put that beyond.
I mean, he can. But,
But I mean, it doesn't make sense. But more than that, I think to come back to the point of whether our negotiators were good or were burned good, the thing is that what did we have to offer? We are buying great quantities of oil, gas. We could increase that. And if we have to reduce, because the petroleum minister has said in the past on record that there are 40-odd suppliers as far as India is concerned, because we import 86% of our requirements. So if we go down in terms of purchase of Russian oil, there are other suppliers, including the United States, and the United States has emerged as a major supplier. And I'm sure we'd be happy to negotiate, purchase of more gas and crude from the United States. And of course, then there are defense equipment, not necessarily F-35s, but there are so many things, platforms that we require, transfer of technology that can be done, and in the larger sort of context of the Indo-Pacific and our cooperation. So I think we can offer obviously a lot, and I'm sure our negotiators have done that. But the problem is that does not, Japan has made a commitment of $550 billion. EU is $650 billion. Do you really think they can meet those commitments anytime soon? So, I think we really need, of course, and I'm sure we're doing a lot of introspection in-house, and see what we can all come up with in terms of a counter, because this is not the final word. Mr. Trump said so. And even tomorrow, I guess, will not be the final word, because if there are negotiations continuing. As far as China is concerned, I don't want to comment, simply because, one, I'm not an old China hand, and two, I think we are too dependent on China for various things. I wish we had made our API for pharmaceuticals, for instance. I wish we had not. So if we can get our idols and our firecrackers from China, then that's abysmal. So we really need to build back that capacity and push back against China as much as we can. And I agree with Dilip that United States is obviously not our adversary. It's supposedly supposed to be our ally. But right now we are faced in a rather piquant situation where we have to deal with somebody who's so transactional and so unpredictable.
Yeah. Tavleen, you said that, you want to know what a negotiating team has been up to for the last 6 months. But you have to also factor in Trump's personality. You spoke about his business interests in Pakistan, for example, being a driving force. Perhaps his ego has been riled, whether it was because Mr. Modi didn't meet him during the campaign or something else, or we didn't say he should get the Nobel Prize like the Pakistanis did. It could be anything with this guy, right? So why blame the negotiators? What would you have wanted them to offer?
I'm not blaming them, but I think they could have been more transparent in front of the country to say, this is what we're trying to do. And this is what and by the way, we can reduce tariffs. Remember those crazy, it's what, 200% on American cars or something like that. So, we can reduce that. That's a very small sort of concession. He wants to say, he gets obsessed with small things like Harley Davidsons and stuff like that. Placate him on those matters, I don't know, because I wasn't in the room when they were negotiating. But, what I do know is that if tomorrow Putin agrees to a ceasefire, how many days is left for that? I think he's reduced it from 90 from 50 to something. So if, we don't know how much Putin is hurting. And if Putin then says, yes, on the advice of the American president, we have decided that we will stop this war, then, it'll be okay for us to buy Russian oil. So, we don't really know. But for me personally, I'm no China hand. The, ambassadors are much more. But I don't trust China one bit. Whereas I trust America. I believe that America is a more transparent country, and that America's interests are much more aligned with ours than China's. China and Pakistan are, a unit now, so we cannot trust China. And really we should,
But can you trust an America under Trump who's also cozying up to Pakistan, who's meeting Asim Munir over lunch? Pakistan's geography has always helped it with the Americans. Earlier it was Afghanistan, now it's Iran.
Barkha, I don't think he thinks of those things. He doesn't know geography and history and all that sort of business. Be serious. The guy is just, he's not thinking of all that. It's all about him.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think we're never going to get a visa to go into America again if they watch our show and us chuckling over him. I know.
Don't worry about that. But don't worry about that. We will always get a visa to go there. But as long as we're not Muslim, so don't worry about that.
Okay,
But
let me come to something. Okay, let me come to something we haven't spoken about. I didn't. Yeah, Mohan, you wanted to come in before I go to Rahul Gandhi? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Barkha, we are buying 500 Boeing aircraft, which could be worth maybe 60, 80 billion dollars.
Mhm.
We got to tell Trump we'll buy another 500 more. I mean, Boeing is unable to produce anything for the time being. So, anyway, we're going to buy over the next 20 years. We should tell them. And then we should sign an LOI. Then tell President Trump we'll buy $100 billion of, the best defense equipment he has got to sell to us. Negotiations
Exactly.
take a very long time. And we also need this equipment, and we'll put conditions like technology transfer, etc. So it'll take more time. We got to be smart enough to negotiate. What is that? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He wants big
That was
numbers.
not.
He wants easy win. And like Towlin said, the damn Harley Davidson, make it tax free. What does it matter? He's taking the stupid Harley Davidson and always saying India is bad because Harley Davidson. India is bad, Harley Davidson. Just give it away free. Why do bring it down from 150 to 75%?
Make it zero.
40%. Let it be
Okay.
brought.
If it was this simple, I wonder if it is. Let me get both ambassadors to respond, and then we'll go to Rahul Gandhi's comment. Ambassador Yash Sinha, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to basically make the point that they recently signed or concluded India-UK FTA with a template. I mean, there were carve-outs and there was mutual give and take. And I was hoping that our negotiators could build with that, but that happened on the 6th of May. It was announced, but 24th of July it was signed. And I said in another program, but this would be an ideal template as far as the US is concerned. Obviously, the US is a far greater, bigger economy and also a bigger trading partner of India's. But that was certainly some sort of template. You mentioned cars, and look at what we've done. We've put quotas on high-end cars, Jaguar, Land Rover, Aston Martin, etc., over a phased period. And even the tariffs, I mean, we are bringing down in a phased manner. 85% by 10 years would be tariff-free, the tariff line that the UK exports to India. So I think we could have followed not exactly the same, in terms of the statistics, but certainly the principle. And I'm sure we tried. I'm not privy to what our negotiators did. I'm sure they even offered to buy, and that was the most obvious thing to do, to buy more aircraft, to buy more oil, gas, defense equipment. I'm sure they did all that, but obviously that was not enough for President Trump.
So where do we go from here? One view, Ambassador Dilip Sinha, is that there's a maximalist position he's taken in vintage negotiating, bullying style. And whatever happens after this will be better than this because the penalty hasn't been specified. It's kind of like hanging over our head. He's clearly put his card on the table and now we have to put ours. But we have chosen to react in a very quiet, restrained, whatever the word is, in a circumspect way, let's say. Is that the way to respond? There's one other school of thought that suggests that, walk out of these trade negotiations. Why are you in them? Like, if he's saber-rattling, saber-rattle back.
Well, you can always commit suicide in different ways. See, the fact is that why should we not massage his ego? I mean, he's going to be there for the next 3 years. Massage his ego. He's claimed that he had brought about peace between India and Pakistan. So be it. Thank him for it. I mean, we are so obsessed with this idea that nobody should mediate between us and Pakistan, that anybody talks anything, we say, no, don't mediate.
But it would upend decades of our position that you can make the phone call, but you can't tell us what to do. And I think most Indians would agree with that. You're saying, why are we het up? Should we not be het up? Like, are the Americans going to tell us what to do with Pakistan?
We can go into that. There'll be a separate program altogether about how we're dealing with Pakistan and about mediation with Pakistan. The fact is that in the Kargil war, we did appeal to America to help, and America did intervene. So let's be clear in our minds. We have gone in for mediation, not directly. Our track 2 has taken place in third countries, where our spy agencies have gone and met spy agencies of Pakistan in third countries. That's equally mediation.
Just that front channel and back channel are not the same, as you don't need me to say that,
well,
but
yes,
I mean, they're not the same.
But the fact is that we know that at times it's very difficult to talk directly. Then you have to go in for third country venues, and at times have third country mediation. I mean, Russia and Ukraine have talked in. So why have we suddenly become, and that has become a major point. I think it's a major point with Trump. And then the other point about buying, as Mr. Mohandas Pai said, that look, Vietnam has agreed to buy 50 Boeing aircraft. Indonesia has agreed to buy 50 Boeing aircraft. We can also equally agree to buy 50 Boeing aircraft and 20 liters of milk, if that's what satisfies, and 2 kilos of soya. Do that. You don't, the new rules of trade mean that we are dealing directly with America, and whatever we agree with America will not extend to other countries. So it's a pure bilateral deal. We have a quantitative restriction. After we have agreed to import Scotch whiskey from reduced duty on Scotch whiskey from Britain for the last, I think, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know how many years, we had been objecting to Scotch whiskey coming into India from UK. And we finally given in, and that's
So-
what.
So my only point, and Ambassador Ashton, if you want to come in on this, and then we'll go into last comments and Mr. Gandhi's comments. When you massage the ego of a bully, even if he's transactional, you're transactional back, I get that. But typically, if you don't stand up to a bully, he'll bully you again. That is my concern.
No, I think that is a fair point that you're making, because as far as massaging his ego, I think we did a lot of that in the first term, especially, and even now. I mean, when Prime Minister went to the US in February, was it this year? So I think the fact is that we, at some point, we have to draw the line. And when we draw the line, then we have to stick to that line. Maybe not in negotiations all the time, but as far as on matters of principle, because if you massage his ego too much, then you're accused of being psychophantic, and then you're attacked in Parliament and elsewhere on the street. But when you sort of hold the line, then it's a failure of foreign policy. So I think we really need to be far more balanced as far as our assessments go. And I think it's still very early days. I think we could really do, and I agree with Dilip that, in the past we've had, I would call it facilitation. There has been facilitation. We don't use the word mediation, and we don't want mediation. That's our policy. But certainly our friends facilitate. What are friends for? They do facilitate. So I think we need to be very maybe perhaps we should have given him some credit in saying, yes, of course, the United States called us and urged restraint, etc., etc. Perhaps he would have been more satisfied. I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is that we have to tackle this in the whole of government approach, consult all stakeholders. Mr. Goyal has said that in Parliament. And I do hope we come up with a strategy to deal with this.
Now, before we take last comments, mostly everybody closed ranks against Trump. Some members of the opposition even wanted a parliament resolution calling him a liar. That's what, we had one of the RJD leaders say. But Rahul Gandhi said that he agreed with President Trump that India is a dead economy. Take a look at this. This has created a big political storm today, and then we'll come back to all of you for final comments.
Trump is saying Indian economy is a dead economy.
Yes, he's right. I mean, everybody knows this, except the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. Everybody knows that the Indian economy is a dead economy. I'm glad that President Trump has stated a fact. What more do? Why are you asking this question?
लेकिन 25% tariff लगाया plus penalty भी लगा दी.
This is a dead economy. Are you people not aware of this? आपको ये मालूम नहीं है कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी डेड इकोनॉमी है? कोई कंफ्यूजन है आप में? पूरी दुनिया जानती है कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज अ डेड इकोनॉमी और बीजेपी ने इकोनॉमी को खत्म कर दिया है. क्यों खत्म किया है? अदानी जी की मदद करने के लिए खत्म किया है. तो आप लोग हैरान क्यों लग रहे हो?
Now, I'll start with you, Tavleen, because whatever be your views on the state of the economy, you do not choose a foreign leader, whoever that leader is, public commentary against your country, for that to be the time to make a criticism about your government and also get in Adani and whatever else he's got in. I don't know what you thought of the comment.
I believe that Rahul Gandhi's understanding of the economy is like Trump's of geopolitics in history. He hasn't a clue. He hasn't a clue. And he doesn't remember. I'm old enough to remember the Indira Gandhi years, the license Raj. I'm really old enough to remember when the Indian economy was so dead that we stood in lines to get a bottle of milk. All right. So for him to say this is outrageous, but he knows nothing about it. And this obsession with Adani, I mean, it's so bewildering when he says something like economy is dead because he's killed it because of Mr. Adani. What can you say about that? What can you say about that? I have no words.
Yeah, and even forget anything else. It's also, I feel like it's pretty crazy, but it's also poor politics. It's kind of both. It's also just poor politics. It's like not reading the room. But Mohandas Pai, what do you think?
No, look, you can't accuse him of having any intelligence regarding the economic condition of the country, right? I mean, he's a novice, less than a novice. You can't accuse him of doing that. I think you got to talk to Jairam Ramesh to educate him. I tweeted today, was asking Jairam to educate his protege about economics. No, let me give you some detail. This year we'll add about 32 lakh crore to our GDP. If you look at the first quarter results, which are going on, 890 companies have shown an increase in PAT of about 8.5%. It is there in money control for everybody who wants to see. Revenues have gone up by about 7.5% for the first quarter. Okay. Tax collections have been down primarily because of large refunds and the giveaway of 1 lakh crore. And we invest $1.2 trillion a year in capex in this country, both private, public, and household, because our investment rate is 31% of our GDP. And I think if you look at all indicators, India is doing reasonably well. We'll grow at about 6.4, 6.5% this year, which is very, very good. And we have very low inflation. And if you look at employment, you look at the EPFO details, just last month we had 20 lakh people incrementally coming into the EPFO network paying subscription. These are not some figures of opinion. These are people who paid incremental.
My point is, Mr. Pai, irrespective of what the state of the economy is, and maybe we can have another discussion on the economic health of the country, you do not respond to an insulting comment by another head of government about your country as a leader of the opposition. It's quite simple and basic.
Yes,
you do not do that.
That's because you love your country, you understand your country, you're outraged. Like Towling said, don't pay attention to him on these matters because he does not know. You got to forgive him and pray to God that, to forgive him because he knows not what he's talking. The great saying to say, you get offended, I get offended. Towling, I think, understands him much better than any of us. That he just doesn't understand. He just says what he wants. Taka, this, that, all can. And this Adani, look, let me tell you about Adani. Adani in all his investment is a small player in India. I had a TV interview with FT where he said, the infrastructure will come down if Adani doesn't invest. I said, man, if Adani disappears today, nothing will happen to India. He's a very small player in the entire infrastructure thing. Yes, he's putting up all these power plants, but overall, there are a lot of players. Why are we so obsessed with that guy? I mean, he's obsessed. Ambani is great. Ambani has done very good work in that oil area. But, Adani is done in many businesses. He's not such a big player. In some areas, he's taking market share. But look, we have to forgive him. We have to ignore him like we ignore Trump's comment about many things. Don't get offended. Don't get upset. Don't get emotional. Just laugh it off and go negotiate. Tomorrow, he'll praise you equally. Trump will praise you equally. My friend Modi is a great one. India is the best country in the world. They gave me a fabulous deal. They're going to buy $1 trillion from America in the next 5 years. Yay. That's it. Towling is right.
Okay, so we're basically talking about big grown children here. We literally are talking about Trump like being a little spoiled brat who needs a lollipop, and then he'll say, "Oh, you're very sweet." But look, honestly, Ambassador Dilip and Yash, you may not want to get into the politics of the Congress, the BJP. I'm not even talking about politics. I think it's basic. It's basic, right? Another country comes for you, you close ranks, and then you fight at home as much as you want to. The economy or whatever else. What did you make of that comment, and does it give Trump some point scoring, or he may not even notice it? Dilip, I'll start with you.
I don't think Trump will not notice it because he does get paid all these things. Now, remember in Parliament, Rahul Gandhi stood up and said that he wanted Prime Minister to go call Trump a liar. And he said that not once, but several times he repeated that. No, that is not in good taste at all. But then that is what he is. Now, if he believes that Trump is a liar, why is he now quoting Trump? And if he feels that the economy is not doing well, by all means, he has a right to criticize the government for it. But then get your own facts, right? Don't have to quote a foreign president, especially one doesn't know anything about, as Tavleen said, anything about India or any other country in the world. So, and he can look up at some of the forecasts of the IMF and the World Bank about India's growth rate, that it tells that India is still the fastest growing large economy in the world. Meaning the best is to ignore him, as Mojo said. I mean, he really is best ignored, and we have to deal with more important things. Trump is difficult enough to handle and deal with, and we have to focus on that rather than.
But I think I think one of the excellent points you just made is that Rahul Gandhi was adamant that the Prime Minister should call Trump a liar. Now he's accepting the same Trump's appraisal of the Indian economy, and that is such a commonsensical, elementary contradiction. Yash Sinha, the last word to you. Where are we going from here? When all the sound and fury is over, is there still hope that this is going to sort itself out in the age of Trump on the quiet?
Barkha, before I answer your question, I should be allowed to even comment on.
Please.
I completely agree with the previous three speakers on what Mr. Gandhi's comments are. It reminds me of that velocity comment that he made some years ago. But the sad part is that he is the leader of the opposition. It's a very responsible position in a democracy. And can we afford to have the LOP make such statements which fly in the face of facts? I'll leave you with that question. But to answer where we go from here, I think we will need to be patient. We will need to negotiate strongly. And we should have the confidence. And of course, we are at a disadvantaged position as far as the US is concerned. The US is, and there are many players in the US who will probably agree with us. Just imagine the price of medicines, paracetamol, going up in the pharmacies in the US. I mean, that's going to cause problems, not just pharmaceuticals, but there are others. I mean, iPhones now. I mean, 25% duties are going to be, tariffs are going to be imposed on iPhones made in India. Then that's going to have a ripple effect in the US in terms of inflation, etc. So I think we need to be patient. We need to negotiate with as best a hand that we have. And as I said, we need to have the confidence to ride this out.
All right, we leave it there. I have to say I admire the sort of relative cool-headedness that all four of you have shown. I felt very prickly this morning when I read Trump's post, and I immediately wrote a very sentimental tweet saying India should just exit these negotiations. But I think it was Jairam Ramesh who once famously said that a lot of Indians, when it comes to America, like to say, Yankee, go home, but take me with you. So India has a kind of complicated relationship with the United States of America, a lot of cultural connections, a lot of historic connections, a deep strategic connection. And I think as Dilip Sinha said, the challenge now is how to save the Indo-US relationship from the chaos that Donald Trump has created. And at home, Rahul Gandhi is the only person, I should say, in his party who actually said what he did. It would be also interesting to contrast his remarks with several other leaders of the Congress party who actually reacted very differently, and therein lies a tale. Thank you so much, Tavleen, Mohan, to Ambassadors Dilip and Yash Sinha. Thank you, and to our audience. Thank you, and see you tomorrow. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.